So since we last spoke, I think that was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, probably 2 years ago. I kind of started another business venture that's on the farm property as well. So we've been growing super hot peppers. So it's been fun and interesting, kind of navigating that um, with the dogs and continuing to produce great quality dogs while having all the added stress and pressure of opening a second business. So that's been going on. I kind of took the last year off from breeding. I only had two litters last year. Um, the markets definitely was part of that decision to take. About 9, 10 months off, but also starting the pepper company that gave me more time to focus on that. And then we have a ton of new litters this year. I've got four on the ground right now with a fifth on the way.
Do you foresee the dog breeding market making a comeback anytime soon?
Um, I think there's a lot of political aspects to it, and I kind of think the economy has taken a beating the last 3, 4 years. So I'm hopeful that this next year we get a better economy with different political decisions being made with our country. And I think that dogs are kind of a luxury item. Even working dogs, it's still people need a disposable income source if they're going to be producing or going to be buying food or dogs rather than buying food or paying for gas to put in their cars. So I do think I'm hoping that in the next year it should improve and continue to improve after that.
Who are your ideal puppy buyers?
um People that are living out in suburbs on half acre to 2 acres of land that have high value assets, or family people that want to protect their families, people that don't feel secure in the current world environment, that are looking for a more serious guard dog. There's a lot of people that are selling band dogs. You go to a band dog Mastiff page, there's you can probably find 10 sets of puppies in 10 minutes. Um, and I think that a lot of those people start with color first and then go structure in their breeding programs. I think a lot of them don't even really test their dogs or are really looking at temperament or even know what they're looking at. you know um, some people don't even have enough some of these breeders don't even have enough experience and haven't seen enough different types of dogs to really understand the drives that their dogs are working out of, and their temperaments. And so I started from the exact kind of opposite side of the spectrum and went with temperament first. And kind of the way I see it is, if your dog isn't going to protect you and it's a guard dog, why do you have it anyways? If it's gonna, if somebody kicks down your door and runs in your house, and starts shooting or whatever, if the dog's gonna tuck tail and run away, that's not helping you or your family or protecting your business or whatever the situation may be. Um, it's defeating the purpose of having the dog in the first place. I do understand that we're in a very litigious society today, and a lot of people would rather have cameras, alarm systems, and insurance. And it may be easier in this day and age to um, take an insurance check after you've been robbed and not even try to prevent the robbery in the first place. But I think a lot of people have also think that enough is enough, and they're getting tired of living in fear, having to worry about their families, especially urban homes. You look at Chicago or uh, some of these major metropolitan cities. It's a dangerous place to live. It's a dangerous place to raise a family. Um, so there are a lot of people out there that um, feel that having a dog makes them more secure, and it does, as long as that dog um, has the genetics and the training behind it to do what it's supposed to do when it encounters a real life scenario.
Who aren't your ideal puppy buyers?
So I have so many different breeds. It's I can usually find something that works for everybody. Um, on some of the hotter breedings I'm doing, a lot of the ones with Presa, Fila, um, sometimes the Ovcharkas. Um, I mean, I do think that you have to have a certain level of dog experience before you jump into these breeds, but at the same time, you don't want to turn away people that are first time customers because you know you've got to start somewhere. Everybody's got to start somewhere. So if every and that's a big thing in the community too. A lot of breeders just ask experience right off the bat. If you don't have any, they say no, your dog, you don't need one of my dogs. Well, I don't think that necessarily gives people the opportunity to expand their horizons or to learn. That you're never gonna be able to reach the people you need to reach to get a new breed off the ground, or even to make it from a business aspect, to make a profit or any kind of financial gain, which is um, essential to keep breeding. And obviously the goal of any breeding program is to keep bettering your dogs every generation. Pick the best dog, not stick with what you have, but to keep improving your lines, to always pick the better dog. And you need new people, you need new customers, you need sometimes younger customers too. The world's a fluid environment, and you have to change with it. And part of that's being willing to accept new clientele and people that might not have the experience. And just because they don't have the experience doesn't mean they can't be educated and they can't learn. Um, so I think that's an important thing. But going back to your question, there's a dog for everybody. You can find something that'll work for anyone as long as they're willing to do their part, they're willing to educate themselves, and they're willing to put the time in with the dog and the money. It's an investment, you know.
Do you plan on expanding your training program beyond where it's at now?
I take in a lot of client dogs that are not actually some of the Frenchies I've done are one of the harder breeds to do board and trains for, because I have to take extra precautions, in terms of water and how hot they're getting and things like that, and the fact that they're a brachiocephalic breed. So I think that'll definitely advance my program a lot in terms of the board and trains having a temperature regulated kennel. So that's kind of my big goal for my overall dog projects this year.
Is breeding dogs a hobby or is it a business?
No, there are a lot of people that make a lot of money breeding dogs. It's definitely a business. It's definitely a viable business. I will never put all my eggs in one basket, especially when you have a ton of dogs on your property. They're dependents. They have to eat. You have to make sure that they have food. So if you only have one revenue stream, they're like any market. There's ups and downs, and coming out of COVID. Um, there's been people bought dogs, a lot of dogs during COVID because they were home all the time. They had time to take care of them. And then when people started going back to work, they didn't have the time for the dogs. The dogs didn't receive the training. So what I saw during that period of time was that the breeding, and even now it's very hard to sell a dog, but the training has, always been a fallback on cash flow. Um, and they kind of alternate in, if one's up, the other one's down, and when one's down, the other one's up. So you always have kind of, a cyclical cycle kind of going on. But even with just dogs in general, I would also say, you should be very careful with breeding being your only revenue stream. That's kind of why I've got the farm, why I'm doing um, peppers. That's more of like a daily cash flow. And then also with breeding, it's dangerous. It's a gamble every time you do it. There's so many things that can go wrong. You can have the perfect dog, and they may not have semen at that particular time because it's too hot outside, or um, you know have a miscarriage. There's so many things that can happen. So if you're relying on that as your only income base, that's a dangerous game to play. So I would advise other breeders, or people striving to become a professional breeder, um, to have a fallback option, have a plan that if it doesn't go according to plan, that you have something else going on. Kind of right now, what you're seeing, I've seen a lot of people, new breeders, that kind of watched what happened with COVID. So when you buy a dog, or any animal for that matter, whether it's livestock, there's a turnaround time. You're putting a ton of upfront money, and you don't get any money back from it for 2 years, at a minimum. A lot of times it's 3 years. So you're investing anywhere between $2,500 and $10,000 into a dog, for breeding purposes. And and it could come back with genetic issues. It could have all these different things, and you may not even be able to use it in a breeding program, and you may have to get it out. But what I see a lot of people doing is they thought it was easy money. um, and it's kind of more amongst backyard breeders, people who've only had one, two, even three litters, but haven't been doing it for years. So they think it's easy money, and they're gonna turn it around. Well, then it doesn't become easy money. So then they're like, okay, well, I'm spending way too much money for these puppies, these dogs, so I'm going to dump them, or I'm going to put them in a rescue. And one, that's not responsible. Two, it's not fair to the dog. um, but that's also created a very heavy strain on the market, because there's so many dogs that people are trying to give away, not even charging for them, just free dogs. That if you are in the business, to try and sell dogs, you're competing against somebody who's trying to give a dog away, and it could still be a $10,000 dog. It could be of the same quality and caliber as what you're breeding in your breeding program, and they paid that money and then realized, oh my gosh, this is a huge responsibility and I can't handle it. So it's one thing, especially now, and I mean, it's a major problem in the breeding industry, right this second. And also, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the economy has a huge impact on it as well. Um, Dogs are a luxury item; they're a luxury commodity. You're not gonna get a dog that's an extra mouth to feed when you can't put food on your table and you can't put gas in your car. So you know, it definitely dog breeding, follows economic trends. When the overall economic marketplace is good, um, the breeding industry is much better.
Do you ever get negative feedback for breeding dogs for a profit?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I tell people that my dogs are for sale, not on sale. Tons of people, every time I post like a new litter, or not even a new litter, just new pictures of a litter. I try to do pictures like once a week, and I'll have 10 to 20 new people ask me how much they, cost. And I tell them, and either there's no response or I get an angry response. Um, and, that's just something you need to live with and make peace with. I mean, if you've got an inferior product, sell it at a lower price. If you're going to have a superior product, it's always going to be at a higher price, and that applies to every aspect of life. You know, quality isn't, you get what you pay for, and you've heard that since you're a child, and it's the truth.
Mhm. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to start a dog breeding business?
I would say one of the biggest mistakes I've made was going straight into it full time and not like slowly working my way into it. Like I quit my day job and was like, I'm going for it. Um, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen. And, um, I've kind of always done that in my life, and, uh, just, just bulldoze my way through, things and willed it into being. And I wish I would have kind of stepped into it slower than I did, and kind of worked my way to where I am now over a 10-year period of time instead of a 5-year period of time. It would have been easier. It would have avoided a lot of heartache, basically, and hardship, especially financially. But you know, it is what it is, and hindsight's always 2020.
Does your dog training business help in any way your breeding business?
Well, okay, so definitely probably 80% of my clients are people that are buying puppies from me. So one, feeds into the other. And the people that, can't afford to have one of my dogs, a lot of times they're, they work really hard. They're really busy. So they don't always have the time, um, put into training. So, that's something I can do for them. And then it's very important, when I do a board and train, I take a lot of videos and send them to the customers that you can hear me talking the commands. You can, see what my body language is, what visual cues I'm giving the dog. And, we kind of do like weekly update videos and kind of like a weekly conference, to talk about it. And then I really encourage people to set aside a whole day, reserved for, picking up the dogs, so that they can, see and learn exactly how I'm training them firsthand. And then, making sure that the dog respects them as much as the dog respects me, is an important thing. And making sure that, when they leave, the dog is, um, you know, doing, um, what I have trained the dog to do, and will, get the same result from them as I can get out of the dog. Because, there's plenty of trainers that will train a dog, but if, your client doesn't know how you've trained them, it doesn't do them any good. Um, I've hired some employees. It's good to have people that are as qualified as you are and capable of, kind of doing that aspect of the business. Um, because time is, one of the most important things as a business owner. Time management and being able to do everything I'm trying to do. And that's kind of been a struggle, is me, being able to delegate tasks to my employees and trusting them to do things. And so that's been a major hurdle in, the training business, is making sure that my employees are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing it, and at the same quality level.